Hey guys, and welcome to another very exciting visual effects tutorial. I am really pumped today because this video is actually coming at you from the pulsing metropolis of Tokyo, Japan. In this video, I am really pumped today to bring this video to you from the beautiful beaches of Maui, Hawaii. Paris, France? Wait, Paris doesn't have any beaches? Oh wow, San Francisco. Well, now I don't even know where we are anymore. Can you please stop fiddling with the background and just put me somewhere nice? Well, apparently this video is going to come at you right from a dark and dirty storage facility. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to properly green screen in Adobe After Effects. Green screening is a fundamental technique that is used in one form or another in a very, very large number of visual effects. It is the simple technique of placing your subject in front of a green or a blue backdrop so that you can later remove the backdrop and replace it with any piece of footage that you want. Why green or blue in specific? Because the subject in front of your green screen is usually going to be a human, and neither green nor blue are very common skin colors. This then makes it relatively easy to remove the background by simply stripping everything that is green or everything that is blue out of your footage. If you do need to separate your actor from your background and you did not use a green screen, or the actor was wearing something in the same color as the screen, this simple technique is not going to work and you are going to be in a world of hurt. You will then have to separate your actor from the background frame by frame manually. Now, this technique is called rotoscoping and is going to be the topic of another video. Also, keep in mind that in order to realistically green screen someone into another shot, the lighting on your actor from your green screen setup has to match the lighting of the final scene. In the intro to this video, for example, I actually used 3 different lighting setups to make myself fit better into the different background images. For the Tokyo scene, I'm fairly well lit. There's light coming from all directions as there's a lot of city light all around me. For Hawaii, Paris, San Francisco and the mystery location, the lighting is actually very diffuse, so I took away all direct light when I shot the green screen clips. For the dark bunker scene, I placed most of the lights behind me in the green screen setup. This was to match up with the light coming from behind me in the room. There are a number of additional things that you need to do to properly green screen someone into another shot, and I will cover all of them as I take you through this introductory tutorial. This is going to be a low intermediate tutorial and I will be using Adobe After Effects. The concepts of green screening, however, are not specific to any particular tool, so hopefully you will find something useful in this tutorial no matter which software you are using. But enough of me talking, let's jump right into the tutorial. Here I have a brand new empty composition. Now first, let's drag the Tobias Japan movie into our composition. As always, I will provide links to all of the videos I'm using in this tutorial down in the description of the video if you do want to follow along. Before we get into working with the green screen effects, let's quickly talk a little bit about the setup. Notice how evenly the green screen behind me is lit? I even ironed the whole sheet before I used it as a background. This is very important because the more even your backdrop, the more even your green or your blue screen, the easier it will be to key out. I'm also standing a fair bit in front of the green screen and there's light behind me so that I'm not casting much of a shadow onto the backdrop. Again, a strong shadow on the green screen would become a problem when we're trying to key it out. The effect we're going to use in Adobe After Effects to remove the green backdrop is called key light, so go and search for the key light effect. Don't apply the key light effect to the layer just yet. Because the key light effect will only remove the green parts of the footage, we first need to cut away all of the bits and pieces around the green screen because we certainly don't want them to be part of the final footage. The easiest way in Adobe After Effects to do that is simply to use a few masks, so let's zoom out a little bit, select the pen tool and let's draw a mask around only the parts of the layer that we want to keep. In my case that is only the areas where I'm standing in front of the green screen. Make sure there's a little bit of an edge here at the top, we're not including that, so kind of cut around that. Let's go up. And there you go, now you've only got me standing in front of the green screen chatting away. Now it's time to apply the key light effect to the Tobias Japan layer. The key light effect is actually pretty complicated and contains a large amount of settings that I'm not going to touch on here. I highly recommend that you check out the full user guide for the key light effect that you can get from the website for the Foundry. Again, I'm going to provide a link down in the description of the video. Most of these settings are only relevant to very particular scenarios when dealing with the green screen, so I'm not going to go into them too much right now. Let's simply focus on removing the green screen for this particular shot that we have here. Select the color picker for the screen color property and then click on your green screen. You want to click on a fairly neutral area on your green screen, avoid the highlights and avoid the darker areas, just around here looks fine. Bam! And we're not really done. Now, while most of the green screen has been removed, by default you're likely going to see some remnants, there's going to be some leftovers of the green screen depending on your setup. To fix this up, we will have to tweak the screen matte that is being applied by the key light effect. Go back into the key light effect and change the view over to screen matte. The screen matte you can now see in your preview window is a calculated grayscale image that defines how transparent the different parts of your final footage will be. Where the screen matte is black, the final clip will be fully transparent. Where the screen matte is white, it will be fully opaque. What we do want to achieve is that the subject, the foreground, which is me in this case, is fully white and all of the green screen is solid black. The easiest way to achieve this is to expand the screen matte tab, if you haven't already, and then increase the clip black property to trim out most of the backdrop. Make sure you trim out all of the green screen. Between my feet here you can see a little bit of a shadow area, so let's push the clip black property up just a little bit more. Now this looks pretty good, but if we quickly zoom in you can see there are still a few dark splotches on top of my body. This means that part of the foreground, part of me, will be semi-transparent, which is not what we want. To fix that up, reduce the clip white property to solidly fill in your foreground. Let's zoom back out. Yep, that looks pretty good to me. Let's scrub through the footage. Cool, I think that looks like a pretty clean key. Now, one of the tips that I've come across while browsing the interwebs is that you should try to keep your clip black value as low as possible and the clip white property as high as possible, so that the screen matte itself is a little bit of a range of color and it's not just a 2-bit black and white image. To check out the final green screen result, let's change the view back to final result. Bam! That's looking really good. I'm cleanly keyed out from the footage. Now one thing I'm noticing is that if I zoom in a little bit, that the edges around my body are rather harsh. This is a result of us going pretty strong on the clip black and clip white properties. In order to soften out the transition between your foreground and your background and just make it look a little bit more organic, there are a number of properties that you can play with. The screen shrink and grow property can be used to expand or contract how much of the foreground will actually be included in your final footage. I'm actually going to leave this at 0 because I'm actually quite happy with the key. Now, the one property that I will increase a little bit is the screen softness. This simply blurs out the edges between your fore and your background and just makes it look a little bit more organic. This is usually a little bit more useful in scenarios where you have soft details like hairs that you need to retain, but I think I'm just going to set it to maybe 0.5, maybe even a little bit lower. Maybe we'll just go with 0.3 just to soften the edges out just a little bit. Now, the whole point of green screening is to be able to place your subject in front of a different background. For this tutorial, let's place me in front of the Tokyo background that I used in the intro for this tutorial. In my project I have an image here called Tokyo, so let's drag that into our composition and place it below the Tobias Japan movie. Bam! Well, again, we're not really done. There's a few, obviously I'm totally misplaced, I'm kind of floating mid-air, I'm also way too big, but color-wise I don't quite fit into the shot either. Let's fix the obvious ones first. Let's scale down the layer a little bit, just so I'm a little bit more normal sized, and maybe let's drag it down a little bit so it looks like I'm actually standing on the road. That's actually not too bad. Let's quickly rewind and play this clip back. And yeah, I'd say that doesn't actually look too bad. The main reasons I kind of fit into the scene okay-ish is that when I filmed myself in front of the green screen, I had lights coming from all directions onto me, simulating the light for this particular scene where I've got brightly lit buildings all around me. This is really important if you film your green screen scene without knowing what footage you want to place yourself in and you don't match up the lighting from your green screen setup to the final scene, it's just not going to match. As I said, this is not yet perfect, there are still quite a few things we need to tweak. First of all, yes, I should have used an actual video of Shinjuku rather than just an image because you can see people frozen in the background, but for now, let's just roll with it. The first thing I actually want to fix is the fact that I think I'm a little bit too dark to fit into the scene. So for that, go and search for the curves effect and apply it to the Tobias Japan layer. Go into the settings for the curves effect and push up the RGB curve to make me quite a little bit brighter so I fit a little bit better into the brightly lit scene. Cool, I think that looks a whole lot better already. Next, and this is just a slightly more advanced technique, is that I think it would be really cool if I had some blue light coming onto the left side of my body from, these blue billboards here in the background. And if my right side was a little bit orangey, yellowish lit, just, matching up all of the colors of the buildings in the background. Ideally, we would have used those lights when we were filming the green screen scene, but I didn't have colored lights available, so let's fake it for now. Fortunately, that is really easy to do, just using some lights in Adobe After Effects. In order for a layer in Adobe After Effects to be affected by the lights in your composition, you first need to turn it into a 3D layer. So on the Tobias Japan layer, enable the 3D layer switch. Because we don't have a camera in our composition, enabling the 3D switch won't actually change how anything looks. However, it will enable the Tobias Japan layer to receive lights that we add into our composition. To prove my point, create a new light and change the light type over to ambient. I'm going to call this light ambient as well so I can easily identify it in my composition, and then use the color picker to select a bright yellow from the background image. Set the intensity to around 90-95 for now and then hit OK. Bam! Immediately you can see I'm kind of yellowish lit and I've gotten a little bit dark now. With the ambient light still selected, press Ctrl-Shift-Y to open up the light settings again, and let's jack up the intensity a little bit more, maybe to 110%. Yep, I think that actually looks a lot better. I kind of fit into the scene a little bit more. Let's hit OK. Now let's add two more lights, one for the blue light coming from my left side and one for the orange light coming from my right. Create a new light. This time set the light type to point and then use the color picker to select a nice saturated blue from one of the billboards over on the right hand side. Let's call this one blue light and make sure that the fall off is set to smooth. Radius around 500 and fall off distance around 450 to 500 should be okay. Let's just see what this looks like, so hit OK. Whoa, that's kind of making me look a little bit too unhealthy. So let's take this light and move it over to the right hand side to where the blue billboards are, so that what is happening is that there's just a little bit of blue light being cast on my left shoulder. Now let's duplicate the blue light layer and let's call this one orange light. Let's move it over to the left side of the screen to where the orange and red buildings are in the background. And let's bring up the light settings again by pressing Ctrl-Shift-Y. Then use the color picker to select a nice orange from the background. It's looking like the orange is a little bit too strong, so maybe let's bring down the intensity to maybe around 70%. Let's hit OK. Cool! I think I'm also going to move the light over a little bit more to the left. I want this effect to be fairly subtle. I just want a little bit of orange on my right hand side. Let's rewind the composition and play it back. It's looking pretty good. There's still more that we could do to make this look even better, but I think for a basic green screen effect and a basic compositing of someone into a different background, this should give you enough to work with. Before we wrap up this tutorial, let me quickly show you another scenario and give you a few tips on how to deal with some of the problem scenarios that you might run into when trying to do a green screen effect. Back in my project window, I have another clip here called Selena Crawl Back. Simply drag this clip onto the new composition icon to, well, create a new composition. This is actually a clip that we recorded last year for our Halloween horror special, The Ring. It's a simple clip of Selena in a green screen setup crawling over my couch. I have a full-blown tutorial already for how to green screen the scene and composite Selena into a forest scene to have her come out of a creepy old well. You can check that out in your own time, and again, there's going to be a link down in the description of this video. For now, I just want to focus on a few of the challenges with this particular green screen shot. First off, while behind Selena I've got a really nice and smooth green screen pop-up screen which works perfectly, over the couch we've draped the rest of my green screen and it's rather creased and crinkled. This creates a lot of shadow and highlight areas which are rather difficult to key out cleanly. Furthermore, because the light is coming from above to match the final forest scene, Selena is actually casting quite a strong shadow onto the green screen on the couch. Again, because the dark shadows are in color very similar to her hair draping over the green screen, it becomes difficult to separate the two cleanly. Lastly, and this is a very common thing with green screens, Selena's hair is very fine and very detailed, and applying a hardcore green screen to this is just going to kill all of the details. So let's try to go through the exact same workflow we did with me in front of the Tokyo background. First, use the pen tool to draw a mask on the footage and cut away everything that is not shot against the green screen. Then search for and apply the keylight effect to the clip. Again, use the color picker for the screen color to pick a fairly neutral green screen color. And because we have a lot of remnants of the green screen in our shot, switch the view back over to Screen Matte. As before, expand the Screen Matte tab and increase the Clip Black property to trim away all of the green screen color. Then bring down the Clip White color to fill in Selena a little bit more solidly. And this is where some of the problems start. If we zoom in a little bit, right here between her right arm and her hair, this area is actually just shadow on the green screen. It's not really something we'd want to keep, but we can't really remove it cleanly. We can't bring down the Clip White property much more because we're starting to include more and more of the shadow around where Selena is touching the green screen. And we also can't increase the Clip Black property much more because we start trimming out all of the detail in Selena's hair. So let's lower the Clip Black again and increase the Clip White a little bit to leave it a little bit more in a neutral state. However, here's another problem that is quite common to come across with any type of footage that you shoot. Due to the compression that was used on this video, and I believe it was H.264 for this particular one, there's a lot of blocky compression and noise in the image itself. This then makes your screen matte really blocky and noisy, and what's worse is if we play this back, you can see that the compression artifacts flicker, they call it chatter, and they introduce a lot of really ugly noise into your green screen effect. I'm not quite sure how you deal with these situations outside of After Effects, but I would imagine any software tool would have some way of resolving some of these green screening issues. In Adobe After Effects CC, one of the effects that can help you deal with these compression problems is the Advanced Key Cleaner. Again, if you have an older version of After Effects, you may not have this effect, but there are other workarounds that you can put in place. For now, let me quickly just show you how the Key Cleaner works. When you apply this effect to your layer, you won't actually see much of a difference, and the reason is that the Key Cleaner effect works off the RGB information in your footage. However, by default, the Keylight effect modifies that RGB information. So in order to have the Key Cleaner, which always comes after the Keylight effect, work properly, you need to change the output, the view of your Keylight effect to Intermediate Result. Let me quickly toggle the transparency grid so you can actually see what the Key Cleaner is doing. Can you see how nice and soft the edges here are, just around Selena's hair? If we disable the Key Cleaner, you're back to this really blocky compression, but the Key Cleaner now softens out these edges and blends it out much nicer. Now, the default settings of the Key Cleaner effect, in my opinion, are much too aggressive. They're a little bit too soft, so I actually like to bring in the additional edge radius to around 4, just so that we're not wiping out too much of the detail in Selena's hair. Also, we can bring up the alpha contrast a little bit so it adds a little bit more of a harsher edge into the key. I don't want to lose too much detail in the fingers, so I'm going to bring this up to maybe around 25. One of the most powerful options of the Key Cleaner effect is actually the option to reduce chatter. As I mentioned, chatter is really just a flickering of noise and compression artifacts in your footage that cause your final green screen footage to flicker really strangely. Enabling the reduce chatter option will use a temporal smoothing to remove a lot of that flickering of the noise in your key, and it'll look a whole lot better. Now, if we zoom back out and disable the transparency grid again, you can see that around Selena's hair is a whole lot of green. This is happening because we've set the output of the Keylight effect to Intermediate Result. Remember, we set it to Intermediate Result to not affect the RGB channel, but that also means the Keylight effect is no longer applying spill suppression. Spill is really just the green color of your green screen being reflected on or seen on the edges on your actual foreground elements. Fortunately, for anyone who does have the Key Cleaner effect in Adobe After Effects, they've also got another great effect called the Advanced Spill Suppressor. Simply apply the Advanced Spill Suppressor to your footage and bam! All of the green screen on your foreground elements will be gone. Let's zoom back out, rewind this clip and play it back. Cool, that looks like a pretty decent key given the, suboptimal green screen setup we were working with. Let's quickly trial this out, so jump back into the project and let's drag the creepy woods image down into our composition just below the Selena crawl back layer. Let's scale Selena down and position her properly on top of the well. Let's zoom in a little bit. Maybe I'll make her a little bit smaller. Yeah, cool. Check out how much detail we still have in Selena's hair as she's crawling out. Well, in this case, really just back into the well. Let's rewind this clip and play it back. And with those visuals, let's call this tutorial done. And that's all there is to it. Make sure to also check out my video on the 5 most common green screen mistakes and how to avoid them. I really hope you enjoyed this video. As always, if you do have any comments, questions or suggestions, just leave them down in the section below. If you want to see more cool visual effects and filmmaking tutorials, make sure you're subscribed to my channel, and I'd also greatly appreciate it if you could give this video a thumbs up, favorite it and share it with the world. If you want to get in contact or simply stay up to date with what is going on, you can also find and follow me on Facebook, Twitter or on Google+. Thank you very much for watching. Until next time, I will see you later.